right, good evening. Thank you for the wait. And we now have quorum, so I call this meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners to order at 6:43. Grace, will you please take roll?
Alderperson Definite Ledvina.
Here.
Alderperson Rash. Dean. Randy Soki.
Present.
Alderperson Chandik Kundiger, Ryan Jennings, and Melissa Thiel-Collar are all excused. Jim Kneisel.
Here.
Connor Mason. Connor Goodman.
Here.
Dean Rush, are you present? I thought we had quorum.
Just text, he said he's on, but I said we can't hear you.
His mic is muted.
He's muted.
Can, Jamie, can we unmute Dean?
Is it still dialed in?
Or is it unmuted on his end? We're muted on his end.
We're dialed in. It's muted on his end.
He's just got it on his computer muted, right?
I think so.
I don't think it's him. I think it's here.
That doesn't make sense because that other caller is unmuted. Caller 1 is unmuted.
Okay.
Can somebody text him and tell him that?
I think
Marty is working.
All right.
I'll send him the agendas with the call-in stuff.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Dean!
Yes, we can.
Winner, winner.
Yeah, it says my mic is on. Oh, well.
Well, welcome, Dean. We now have quorum.
Hey, Marty told me I was the go-to guy tonight.
You are always the go-to guy. All right, item 2 on the agenda, public comments upon matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Board of Park Commissioners. Any public comments? Seeing none. Next up, 3 items. Number 1, consideration possible action to approve the Board of Park Commissioners minutes from January 18, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, consideration and possible action to accept $500 donation from De Pere Optimist Club for egg hunt.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, consideration and possible action to accept a $250 donation from the De Pere Men's Club for senior picnic.
Move to approve.
Second. I don't know.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consideration and possible action to accept $250 donation from the De Pere Area Men's Club for Easter egg hunt. I'll move to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Dean's got it. I'll second that. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 5, consideration and possible action to accept a $250 donation from the De Pere Area Men's Club for Summer Carnival.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, consideration possible action to approve K Distributing as beer distributor for 2024 beer gardens.
Move to approve.
Second.
Dean's got the second.
All right.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, Dean. Motion carries. Item 7, consideration possible action to approve change order number 7 for Nelson Pavilion. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Anything different? I looked it over, but is it just the things we discussed last month?
Well, these are different
Oh,
than
these are
last
different.
month.
Okay.
Yeah, these are different. So the two that you're looking at, there's one, as we go through the plans, it happens. There's things that are omitted from the plan. So the electric strike power to the doors, that was actually not in the plans. The other one, the low voltage jack outlet in Westwall, that wasn't in the plans, and that was completely our intention. However, our IT director has requested that that get included. So one was an oversight by our consultant. The other one is a request from our IT director.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, consideration and possible action to approve donor wall proposal for Nelson Pavilion.
I can give you a brief summary. We sent out, and we had a bid ad out. We sent to some of the signs companies. We received 2 bids. We were expecting to see a little bit more because we put out a request for proposal for a sign option that would fit in that 4x4 recessed area, as well as an option that could be put on a railing. What was told to us is that you could take this and put it on a railing. I'm not seeing that, but maybe you could. But so these are the 2 proposals that we had come in. If you ask me, they look very similar in nature, similar in materials. Fox Cities is cheaper. We've worked with both companies. Most recently, we worked with Fox Cities, probably a little more so than Creative, but we have worked with both companies. They're both fine to work with. Really, at this point, my recommendation is if you like the proposal, one of them, accept it, and we move forward. Both of them are within the stipend that has been established for creating the donor wall.
Fox Cities is significantly less, is it? I'm trying to see the prices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, with the proposal from Creative, there is some material difference. Like the one proposal, it's aluminum. So this is the one from Fox Communities is an acrylic based. So it's very similar to the same materials that we have on the Riverwalk sign.
Did Fox Cities do the Riverwalk sign?
Yes.
Okay. So you want to see us make a motion to approve one of these tonight?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the sign design from Fox Cities.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 9, consideration and possible action of adding a forestry supervisor position.
Oh, you want me to say something?
Maybe this might warrant a little background.
So
knowledge.
Shannon Metzler, our HR director, is here. So Shannon and I have been talking quite a bit ever since Don has announced his retirement. As with all retirements, we take a look at the retirement, the position. We look at it within our department. How can we do it differently, more efficiently, effectively, et cetera. When we looked at Don's position and the most recent, wave of information and, sentiment, if you will, that we have a lot to take care of and a low amount of staff. we felt now would be an appropriate time to make a proposal. It's unique to do it mid-season, if you will. But with the retirement, as I said, it causes us to evaluate what we're doing. So we would propose that with Don's retirement, we basically need to replace him with 2 people. It's kind of what we're proposing. So what we want to do, we know we're deficient in forestry. We know we are deficient in parks and administration of parks. If we go to a organization that is proposed to you, we gain in both areas. So we gain in forestry in that we have boots on the ground, as it's a common phrase you'll hear for people that are working out in the field. So we have someone that's boots on the ground in the field all year round about half the time. The other half the time, they are able to take care of those administrative tasks related to a actual city forester. Currently, right now, Don will receive calls from people that I've got a tree in my backyard, it's split, I'm wondering if it's, safe to leave up or take down. I have a tree that has, the leaves look like they're dying, it's July, I'm wondering if it has a disease, can you come and take a look at it? So those are questions Don gets, depending on the time of the year, he could get multiple calls in a day. There's also tasks related to forestry, such as our street tree planting and tree removal. That this person would take care of. They would serve as our city forester. They would serve as our weed commissioner. These tasks are being taken away from the park superintendent and putting it to someone that does administration, but also is out there working with our urban forest. So there are some duties that are taken away from the park superintendent, but that allows that position to take on a bigger and better leadership role in the park day-to-day operations. Over the last number of years, we've had a number of projects that have been collecting dust and not where we're not able to get to efficiently enough because there's just not enough time in the day to get to them. This allows us to have a better presence in project management, developing projects, managing projects, as well as our day-to-day operations for our parks. So when one person is split between trying to manage the forestry division and the parks division, that's a tall order, at where we are right now as a city. It's also 2 pretty unique skill sets. You're asking someone to understand the science behind turf, maintenance, ball diamonds, soccer fields. Then you're also asking that person to understand the intricacies of the urban forest that we have, diseases, planting, how to plant, how not to plant, when to plant, oak wilt, gypsy moth. That's a pretty wide range skill set, right? If we're able to split the positions, we are then able to probably find someone that fits those positions better. I mean, you're asking for a lot, when you partner those 2 tasks. So I don't want to put Shannon on the spot, but if I missed anything, she's more than welcome to chime in, or if you have questions. So if you look at, if you're agreeable to the reorganization and the proposal, then the secondary question is how to implement it. Whether you implement it now, if you implement it now, technically there's no money to implement it now, so you would need to request funding from the city council to fund it. In our memo, it outlines how much that would be. Assuming they would take benefits, it would be right around $50,000 to fund the position from about July till the end of the year. We could do without the position until the first of the year and just make it through. It would not be impossible. It would be a challenge because we're training a brand new person. It would be a challenge, but if we need to do it, we would certainly do that.
Questions for Marty or Shannon?
I was just going to add one piece, is that with Don retiring, we started the recruitment actually for the position in hopes of the concept being approved. So we had to take our chances, right, in hopes that this reorg would get approved. So right now we put it out there and we're recruiting for a park superintendent and we removed the forestry piece. So that's where we're sitting right now. If this wouldn't get approved, we'd have to go back to the old structure, and then we would certainly just do another recruitment.
Thanks.
Question.
Dean, go ahead.
So I guess my question is, which of these positions is going to be harder to fill? Because I will say the struggle I would have is bringing on two brand new people and trying to onboard two brand new people can be really tough. As many of us know, and I'm sure Marty and Shannon know as well. So which of these two positions is going to have the greatest impact if we filled it first?
My response to be, so you asked two questions there, Dean. The last question was, what position would have the greatest impact to fill first? That, to me, without doubt, is the park superintendent. I think that's the position that needs to be filled, simply because that does provide the oversight and leadership to the forestry supervisor. So it'd be kind of like hiring your offensive coordinator and then hiring your head coach. So I think we want to hire the head coach first and then the offensive coordinator. Hopefully that analogy makes sense to people.
So, and then the forestry supervisor is the position that Don is retiring from, correct?
It's actually both. So Don's position is technically listed as park superintendent / city forester. So he's acting in both capacities right now. It's just that he doesn't have boots on the ground that the new position would be asked to do.
And one other thing.
Gotcha. So a lot of questions for you, Marty. You should have had me not be on this call, but the next question I have for you would be, is it possible to hire another Don? Or do you think the work is too much?
Another what?
You know, good question, Dean. Is it possible? I mean, I guess anything's possible. I can see him smiling. I would go back to what I had mentioned before, is that we are asking a lot of one person to specialize and understand the forestry operations and all that comes with it, and the parks operations. While, to the naked eye, they may seem very, very similar, and there's some truth to that. There is similarities, but the urban forest and our forestry division, there's a whole different skill set and knowledge base that is required than what our park operations demand. So I think it would be very difficult to find someone that has the experience and specialty in both areas.
And
So
Don,
the last question I'll have for you, Marty, take you off the hot seat. The overall impact. So, what is the total increase? Is that 54,000 that you were talking about, or is it more than that to add both positions?
For the year, the impact, I believe, is 100 to 110,000.
correct.
In that neighborhood with benefits. So the 50,000 that I mentioned is that's for half the year. Yeah. Now keep this in mind.
For adding.
Yeah. So keep this in mind. One thing that we cannot predict is the benefit side. So if someone comes in and says, I don't need insurance because, say, their spouse has insurance, that is a massive savings. And we have that often, but you can't project or predict that.
Correct. Okay. That's the end of my questions. I guess from my personal perspective, because you put those dirty words in there, that unassigned reserve thing, I would prefer that we get the superintendent in place and then budget to hire the forestry supervisor for 2025, and maybe we start that in late 2024. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Dean. Shayna.
Can you explain in option B what you mean by the total budget impact for hiring just the parks superintendent now? You have it, like, says the total budget impact with benefits.
So the total budget impact is in 2025 when a person would be hired for the entire year.
That's okay. I was thinking that meant for 2024.
No.
So that would be coming in 2025. I
Correct.
kind of agree with Dean on waiting and budgeting for the city forester position. Do you think that some of those forestry supervisor related duties that you have listed here could be overseen by that park superintendent for the year? Just until
I think it's going to depend on who we hire. So if we're lucky, and again, our goal should be to hire the best possible person. We can't control who applies and what their experience is. If we would be lucky enough to have someone come in that has some experience and can hit the ground running, I think there's a good chance we can stay afloat, through the end of the year until we get someone hired. But if we don't have the application pool and we have to hire someone that, say, is a good candidate, good personality, good traits, but is very, very raw and inexperienced, it'll be a challenge. But I'll go back to what I said. Would it be our top choice? No. Could we make it work? We'll do what we have to do. If that's the route that's so chosen, we will do what we have to do.
And I just wanted to point out, if you recall, as part of the '24 budget, Marty had asked for an additional arborist position that didn't end up making the final budget. But what was approved was a forestry intern position. They have not filled that position yet. They were actually just probably in process to fill the position. There was about $10,000 budgeted for an intern for the rest of this year, or for this year. So that was put on hold pending what happens with this. So, there's obviously been a need to fill for another position in the Parks Department for a while. And as we kind of evaluated Don's duties and looked at other organizations the size, sometimes you'll see this structure in really small towns. But as the city has grown substantially through the years, this structure is kind of hard to maintain. It's kind of, asking somebody to specialize in two areas. Typically, you might be, have the knowledge base and went to school for parks, or you have gone to school to be an arborist and kind of come up through the ranks there. Not often do you see where somebody's gone to school for both of those areas. You're kind of taking two specialties and asking the person to do both. Now, Don, had the arborist background and then grew into the park position, and obviously he did a good job for the city for many years. If we could find somebody like him, great. But in a perfect world, we'd find somebody who was really specialized and experienced in a particular area and then create a different position for the forestry. Again, if there wasn't the workload there, we certainly wouldn't be asking for the position, but because there is work and it just made sense to pull those job duties separate. And I think certainly there's opportunity, the structure makes sense too. We currently have 2 arborists. We're always looking for succession planning for our employees. And, it's an easier transition, if you have somebody who's an arborist to move into a forestry supervisor position. Sometimes if you're arborist to move all the way up to a park superintendent, when you don't have that park, you're asking, somebody who's been out in the field every day, all day, to then come in and work in the office primarily, almost 90% of the time. It's just a very different job. So, we were evaluating all those different things, and that's why this was the best structure we thought would work for the department.
Jim?
I guess I'm of mind of it would be better to pursue both of them at once, because I feel like you're hamstringing your choices if you are not going to have the forestry person right away. You might give a little more weight to somebody who might be able to do both, but might not be the best candidate for either. So I'm kind of a mind that if we decide to do this, we should just proceed and do it. There's work to be done. My question is the reorganization up to the park board, but any funding mechanism required is this goes to the council, or how does this decision tonight shake out?
It would really be both the decision for the reorg and the funding would eventually go to the council. Okay. So we, typically this isn't something that we're coming to park board with, but it's a mid-year decision on a reorg and the funding, so we thought best appropriate to take it to Park Board, but, typically, asking for additional positions typically through the budget process, which we would all like to have done had we, thought of this and knew Don was going to be retiring. If only he told us, 12 months in advance. No, Don gave us a lot of notice, which we're super thankful for. But this is where we're at now, and, we certainly didn't want to fill a position knowing that a better structure we felt existed. So we thought, let's slow down a little bit. Let's put the right structure in place. Start the recruitment. Worst case scenario, if, Park Board Council is not on board, we'll stop that recruitment and fill it as is. But I feel like it's a better chance to let's just continue moving forward with it as we feel like this is a better structure for the department.
I like the reorganization. I definitely understand the intricacies of both, it seems, as far as the diversity of the jobs. I also think that we've heard and dealt with the issue of not enough tree trimming, contracting with private contractors for forestry services because we've been limited in employees. I would like to see the reorganization start now. I think Shannon brought up a good point that we have $10,000 plus a little bit allocated for that intern, and if we move that money into that forestry supervisor spot, then I know, Dean, unassigned reserves are, not untouchable. They should be touched and accessed for certain things, and this might be one of those that it's an important enough thing to access. I think we move it to city council. They can make the choice at that point, but I think it would be great to say, let's be proactive with this. Let's get people into the positions that can service our city sooner rather than later. So I'm in favor of option B. A, sorry, not B. I've been looking at too many things. So I'll make a motion to approve option A for this.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Shayna?
So when would recruitment for these positions begin, or has it?
Well, the park superintendent is going right now with the assumption that this would go through. If it doesn't go through, we start over again for the park superintendent.
Okay.
Depending on A or B, if B's the so chosen route, we wouldn't do anything until, the end of the year. If A is chosen, we would anticipate in the area of July, simply because we need to get the park superintendent on board. We need to get that person a little acclimated to what's going on before we start a recruitment process. I think it's important they understand where to park and where the bathroom is before they go and hire someone. And then we would pursue that. But
Because they would be overseeing that
correct.
position.
Correct.
So they wouldn't be hired on at the same time.
I don't think that would be our preference.
Okay.
They would go back to back, if you will.
Because
we.
I'm going to support this if you bring it to budget. I'd support the position change. So I guess now I'm leaning more towards option A just to get it rolling. I mean, July isn't far from the end of the year anyway. So I guess I'm looking at it like, what's the difference? It's better to do it now than later.
And if we get boots on the ground, we get a forestry supervisor by August 1, hypothetically, right? Because
Ish.
Ish, right? I mean, gosh, think about all the forestry, items that we have in fall, because we do fall tree planting in the terrace. Trimming is still going on. I think I would rather see somebody in that position than to lose a whole fall season in the forestry department. Dean, do you have anything to add?
Question. Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
So Marty, I'm going to go back and use your statement, but I'm going to ask a question too. You mentioned that we would have to start the whole process of recruiting the superintendent position over if we went with option B, but we're already recruiting for the superintendent, correct? And
No.
that's the first position we would prefer to hire, correct?
No. So what I was referring to, and I apologize if I wasn't clear. So what I was referring to is if the reorganization or the implementation of the forestry supervisor position was not approved, we would need to go back, revise the job description of the park superintendent, and start over again with our recruitment. So that's what I was meaning to say.
Okay, that makes more sense. I misunderstood you then. So I'm actually okay with the reorganization side of it. I'm just not okay with trying to get both positions filled this year. But I can say it this way. I think if the superintendent position is being recruited for now, we keep that process going. And then until that position is filled, then we recruit for the forestry person. Now, if we get the superintendent in place in 1 month, which I highly doubt, you can start the recruitment on the forestry person then. So I think it's a little premature to even put numbers on what it's going to cost us, because if we look at that superintendent and say that person might not be on board until July-ish, it could take another 4 months to get a forestry person in. And I understand what Randy, what you were saying about you want them to go through the fall season, but I think you got to put one in first and the next one in after that, just because, as Marty said, they've got to know the ropes before they can train somebody how to be a part of the department. So I think Shayna, I think you said the same thing, one, then the next one type of thing. So I'm okay with the reorganization. I just think it's the timing of when we recruit.
Randy.
Marty.
So, Dean, just a rebuttal on the comment, as far as like the cost, you're absolutely right. We really don't know the actual cost, but like when Shannon and I discussed, one of the first questions everybody thinks of, well, what's it going to cost? So we had to try to guess as best we could how we think things might fall and what could happen. You're absolutely right. We may not get around to hiring a forestry supervisor until October 1st. We don't know 100%. It's possible we could get someone hired July 1st. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, if things just fall in line, which they never do, but if they would, things could go really smooth and away we go. So we tried to find something in the middle, because we know usually the first question that we get asked is, well, what's it going to cost? So that's why that's what we tried to put a number together for you.
Okay, and that makes sense. I just think the timing of it, that's the hard part to predict, of how these things are going to fall in place. So your number is probably just estimated and guesstimated high, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as I said in a previous council meeting, Marty, I'm trying to get you more money because we're underfunded for a park system our size. But I don't know if that's right for this.
Thank you, Dean.
Doing my best for you.
Further discussion. Jim.
I just like saying, the grand scheme of things, I think everybody thinks this is a really good idea. I don't see any reason to hold it up. Relatively speaking, it's a small amount of money to get everything rolling smoothly in the way you want it, and to not miss a beat, with Don leaving. So I also would support option A.
If there's no further discussion, I'll call a vote.
We have a motion.
I motioned for A, and then Jim seconded, right? Thanks for checking. It's good to double check that. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Randy.
Yep. Go right ahead.
Randy. So the only thing I don't understand, maybe the only thing I'm not fully agreeing with, is the timing of how this is done. So with option A, it talks about recruiting both at the same time, correct? Or doesn't say that, but doesn't.
It does not say that.
No.
Okay.
Randy.
Shannon.
I was just going to mention, with option A, we would, I guess, promise that we wouldn't fill the position no earlier than July 1st. So, and that's why it'd be not to exceed, essentially, it'd be the 50,000 minus the 10. So, I need my cheaters.
Well, it's close to 43,000.
43,000, thank you.
You're welcome.
The total cost. So it's going to be 43,000 or less, approximately, as we mentioned, depending on what somebody takes for health insurance and whatnot, can make a little bit of a difference. But that would be the most that we're looking for to take from unassigned reserves.
And Dean, if you...
Okay, and then just...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, into a follow-up, that this is where the comment from Marty came into play earlier, and I forgot to mention it, but I don't want to be in a position where we hire the offensive coordinator before we hire the head coach.
Right. And actually, Dean, in option A, the verbiage here says, implement the reorganization in 2024. We would start recruiting now to replace the park superintendent / city forester with a park superintendent. And once filled, would hire a forestry supervisor in July. So that's right in the verbiage in the option that I've moved. I don't know if that makes you
Okay,
feel,
that works for me then.
that makes you feel better?
Yeah,
But
it does. I just obviously, my stand on the unassigned reserve thing. So, but no, I'm good with it.
Jim,
Just one question that I didn't ask before. Is there any opportunity for any overlap with Don if these positions are filled earlier, or is Don going to be gone before either one?
Don's retirement date is April 19th.
Well, that answers that. Thank you.
And shortly after that, he's going to Alaska. So I don't know if he's going to have internet service out there.
Okay. Thank you.
if there's no further discussion, we'll call a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. All right. Next item on the agenda is, I'm scrolling back and forth, sorry.
So this is the facility condition assessment for the ice arena.
Thank you.
As staff, we read through the assessments, proposals, and we kind of try to give them a score. That is in your packet. And we kind of rank them. The one thing that I should probably point out, in looking at the proposal from ISES, they actually did not identify their staff that would be working on it. Now, they're an out-of-state company, so there's not the clarity that I would like on who's actually running, who's doing the analysis, how are they doing it. So I guess from a staff resource perspective, if I had to do this over again, they may not be in that 4 category. They would be less. So, so that score would probably change a little bit.
Any questions for Marty?
One thing to think about too, you may look at this as a positive or maybe not. I don't know. Somerville had the highest ranked proposal in our opinion. They have a subcontractor in Rink Tech who specializes in rinks. Rink Tech happens to be the company that installed our chiller system and the one that broke. So there's 2 ways of looking at it, and I guess it's not for me to say which way, but you could look at it and say they have experience with our facility. They know our facility. You could look at it and say they have a bias of our facility. So do we want someone to be completely 100% objective coming in, or is it beneficial to have someone that knows our system? So, but, again, in looking at the proposals, staff felt that Somerville had the highest ranked proposal of the ones that were submitted.
Shayna?
So you're saying there'd be bias with Somerville because Ring Tech installed our chiller system.
So I'm not saying Somerville would have a bias because, they haven't had much experience with our rink. But Rink Tech is the company that put in our chiller system, and Rink Tech is the company that fixed our chiller system when they came in. So there is an understanding of our facility, but, there's also, you would have to argue that there's also a bias of our facility.
Like they're going to say that the chiller system is the best they've ever seen.
I don't know if they would say that.
They don't have any, the rest of the facility was they haven't done anything else with the building or other components of the.
The main work they have done on our facility is the chiller system.
Okay.
So they haven't worked on the floor, they haven't worked on the building, the plumbing, the electrical, the dehumidification system. I do believe they worked on it a little bit, but they did not install it. So, you could, make a little bit stronger argument, say, well, maybe, they have a bias, but it's just with the chiller plant and nothing else.
Because I was leaning towards Somerville, personally.
Is that a motion?
Not yet. Because I was torn between Somerville and then the ISES that you said had the experience with ice rinks, but now you're saying knock it down
So
a point.
I, as staff and looking at that again, they do not explain their staffing like the others do. So I don't know if, unfortunately in their plan, I don't know if they're going to send someone up and who that is, or if they're going to get the bid and then subcontract with an engineer up here to, do a walkthrough, then send the information down. I don't know any of that based on their proposal.
I'm just curious, I look at staff and I see 2 blanks and 3 ones, which is least. So is there?
So that particular column is reserved for staff as in, staff as in me.
Okay.
And companies are given an extra point for something unique and special about them.
All right.
So, we don't give them out like, candy at Halloween. But when we work with a company and they've done a good job for us and they're responsive and they bid again, we give them a point. In case of ISES, they received a point. We've never worked with them before, so I can't speak for that. But if you look at their mission, that's what their job is. Right. That's what they do. So that's unique.
So really, when you add the $500 miscellaneous, Somerville is at $20,400 versus $23,600 for McMahon.
Correct.
We're talking about like only a $3,200 difference. Jim.
I'm looking at the letter from ISES. It says our professional assessors walk every building, roof to basement, and each floor in between. They enter every single room, et cetera, et cetera. Do you feel like it would be worthwhile to go back and ask them to clarify what that means? That, are they hiring a subcontractor or are they actually coming and doing it?
If you would like us to, we could. But like that particular question, we could develop 150 questions, and then where do I stop going back to consultants? At some point, they're asked to explain their staff.
I don't necessarily need that. I'm asking you because you seem to like some of the things about their proposal.
Well, what I would say is I think the scoring that I gave you is a very good and accurate representation of going through the proposals and reading them for what they were. Again, do we have personal preferences? Yeah, sure we do. But that's irrelevant.
Okay.
I mean, that's really irrelevant. And what we try to do is read the proposals, read them for what they are, read them for what we're looking for based on the RFP, and put a score to it. So I think, the score you have in front of you is what staff believes to be the best ranking of the proposals.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we choose Somerville. For this, it's got the highest score and the lowest price. And so that's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Discussion. Dean, you've been quiet. Do you have anything to say on this one?
No, I kind of like the direction that the motion just went because I don't know what the right. my personal thing, as I brought up before, I just don't know that we want to keep the ice rink anymore. But I think that this discussion was good, but I'm okay with the Somerville proposal as well. I don't know that I'm worried about any biases from Rink Tech. So, yeah, I think I'm okay with this.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration possible action to approve playground equipment for Willems Park. Do we want to have a discussion, or do we want to just have somebody make a motion? 'Cause
So I guess from the, general public standpoint, just to let everybody know, we had a number of staff look at the proposals and put a score to it. We also put advertisement out on social media for people interested in providing input, and we also sent direct letters to the immediate neighborhood around Willems. So we actually had a number of people come in, look at the proposals, and provide input and comment. So we put scores to all of that. So some of the main points that came out between staff and the neighborhood, Lee Recreation 1 and MWP option number 1 were the two highest ranking proposals from both staff and the neighbors. Couple of comments that we received from the neighbors is that a number of them were disappointed to hear that we were going with engineered wood fiber. So that was in there. There was an expression, make sure we have monkey bars, make sure we do not embrace noisy parts of the playground. Although the unique part about that is there's been a push, and we have it in RFP, for inclusivity. Inclusivity, let me remind you, as far as our definition goes, is offering as many different activities for all ages and abilities. So when you get rid of the noisy ones, I understand that, but it's a market and an audience that you're trying to reach, audio impaired people that, noise can help them. So I understand someone banging on a drums or a xylophone, if you live next door, may not be appropriate, but there's a reason why some of that stuff is in there, and it's based on inclusivity. Doesn't mean you have to have it, just making a point of it. So, so if you have questions about it, the one thing I can mention is Lee Recreation 1 happens to be the lowest bid. So we have a budget of $80,000. Their bid came in at $47,200, if I'm not mistaken. In talking to Lee Recreation, if we got rid of the actual border, it's about a minus $3,000, so you're down to about $44,000. We're getting close for us to put in port in place. I did a real quick estimate, and we were anticipating that port in place is probably going to be around the neighborhood of $45,000. And part of that reason is because we're putting a 3-bay swing set in. That just takes up the size of a football field is what it feels like. So that takes up a lot of space. But if you were to go with Lee Recreation 1, you could in fact get pretty close. I don't think you could get to your $80,000 budget, but you could get pretty close. If you go with MWP 1, you're not even in the same zip code of trying to get port in place. So you have two options that staff and the neighborhood tend to agree on, and that are the two proposals that are higher than others. Others receive votes, but I'm just saying those two receive the most votes, not only from staff, but from the neighborhood. one has the potential to consider poured in place versus engineered wood fiber.
Jim first, then Shayna.
Thank you. Just on this poured in place thing, it seems like all of the new ones I've visited have the poured in place. Do we have a policy to do that? Or is there a reason this wasn't budgeted for that?
We do not have a policy on it. What we did is our smaller, the price of playgrounds is getting outrageous. I mean, it's getting up there. What we were trying to do is with our smaller parks, trying to be a little bit more cost conscious versus our big, when you've got a big playground like say Voyageur and VFW, you're talking, I mean, hundreds of kids a day. Our smaller parks are not bringing in that type of volume. So
What did we do with the one last year off Main Avenue on the west side?
well, Legion Woods was poured in place. So that's a little bit larger playground, little bit larger.
No, I don't mean the Dana or that. I meant the one that's right.
Lawton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawton is
Lawton.
engineered, Lawton is engineered wood fiber.
Okay. And is that a similar, you would put that in a similar park to Willems?
As far as the size of park, like a classification, both of them would be considered a mini park. So yes.
Do you have a particular preference for using poured in place on this one, or is it just the
No.
feedback you've received?
No, I do not have.
Okay.
Would poured in place be great? Absolutely. Way less headaches for us.
Less maintenance every year?
Yes. But it's also going to be 45 grand. I mean, it's going to be a lot of money.
Shayna.
So what would you need from us tonight if we did decide to go in the direction of the Lee one with poured in place, with the potential of it going to the budget?
What I would probably recommend is that, because I think we have a little bit of time to work with, I think if you were looking at poured in place, I would recommend the park board select an option, direct staff to go back and massage the plan with the vendor to get as close as humanly possible to the $80,000 budget as possible and bring it back to the March meeting. And if that means that, we have to construct August, September, October, well, then so be it.
That would be my motion then. I could make a motion.
I don't,
What Marty said, to go with Lee one.
well,
and have-
wait, I'm not suggesting Lee one. I'm saying, pick a vendor and then have.
Well, the
Now,
only
Lee
way
one-
we could do the poured in place really is.
Lee one is the most
one.
logical because you're $13,000-$15,000 closer to getting the budget than all the other ones.
But it's also one of the two top ranked
Mm-hmm.
playgrounds by staff and the community.
Mhm.
So that's what makes most sense to me.
Are you making a
So is your
motion?
That was my motion.
So is your motion Lee option one, Lee number one, and ask staff to get as close to, figure out how to try to get us within
come
budget
back.
with a poured in
Yes.
place.
I would just like to see.
And bring it back in March.
Yeah, I'm in my playground era right now. Like I am at playgrounds all the time. I think poured in place is amazing, and if we can do it, I think we should try to do it.
All right, Connor.
Well,
I just
wait a second.
Oh,
You have to have a second.
We've got to,
Oh,
yep.
Nope.
Yep, thank you.
I'll second it.
There we go, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we can
Now we
discuss
can
it.
discuss.
I just want to say that I really like both of Lee's options. Both of them look really fun to play on. I love the full swing set. I love the multi-tier of playground equipment below and above. I like the slides. If part of the finagling to get to the 80K price range means that, is there an option to do the playground poured in place with the offshoot of the swings on the side as engineered wood fiber to cut down on cost? Would that at all make sense?
Yes, we've looked at that in the past, and what ultimately ends up happening, it doesn't pan out well because you end up having to separate both of the facilities with some border, which is going to be a sidewalk. And then what happens is you push your footprint out even further.
And
So-
divide it in half?
And then the other thing that we're running into out at Willems Park is that we're actually limited with a pretty small footprint as it is. So if we keep expanding out, then we're going to start taking trees out. Well, and we don't want to do that because there's all kinds of reasons. One of them's right here.
He's gone.
One of them's still here, yeah.
Did you have a follow-up, or was that it?
No, that just makes sense. Not dividing. I just thought maybe it was an option.
That's a good question.
Jim?
To follow up on Shayna's input here, I would like to know, over the life of Port in Place, how much money we're saving based on maintenance. And I mean, I know it's hard for you to figure that out, but if Port in Place lasts 30 years and we save $1,000 in labor every year and materials, filling all that in and answering complaints and dealing with other issues, it seems like the Port in Place is maybe something to think about for every case.
Yeah, we could try to put a number to it. Right now, the jury's still out on how long it lasts, because
Okay.
as of right now, our oldest playground is Legion, the one right next to the pool. That's, what did we figure, 12 years old? So that's about 12 years old, and it's still going good. So what is the life expectancy? We don't know. Could be 15, could be 25. We don't really know.
Is there other places you could check? And
Well, one thing you have to keep in mind is Port in Place has not been around very long. I mean, I would say the first Port in Place surfaces, realistically, were only about 20 years ago. Before 20 years ago, Port in Place was unheard of. So there's really not a long term. Now, can we put numbers to, like, how often would we go out and fluff wood chips? How often did we buy a semi-load of wood chips and fill it in? We can put some numbers to it, but the numbers don't tell the whole story.
right.
Because when you look at engineered wood fiber, it compresses, it kicks out. While ADA says yes, it's a compliant fall surface, but it kicks out. And then it becomes not so traversable. If you're in a walking assist, or you're in a wheelchair or something, it's not that conducive. It's also, every year, there's a little bit that biodegrades, and you don't have 12 inches of wood chips anymore. You might have 11, then 10, and you don't have the same, what's the word I'm looking for, Don? Compression. Whereas with the Port in Place, from year 1 to year 10, we have 8 inches of cushion, and that's not ever changing.
Yeah.
And it's an even surface all day long, every day, 365 days a year for a wheelchair to go over.
My whole point is, if you can, it's not $40,000 more. If you think about it in the bigger picture, it might be $25,000 more. And then at that point, is it worthwhile because less injuries, better accessibility, fewer complaints, people are much happier with it. I just hate to look at that one big number, and that isn't the only factor, really.
I think we can find stats out there that suggest Port in Place is a wise decision. Going back to budget time and capital project time, you remember we always have 30 projects.
Yep.
And at some point, you got to go, we know we're not getting this, we know we're not getting that. But if we ask for 80,000 and put in wood fiber, maybe we get one more project, versus we're asking for 120 grand, and then we don't get to replace the truck. So those are the decisions why we're in the boat that we're in. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I got something.
All right, Dean, jump in.
Kind of listening to the discussion going back and forth, and my first thought was, don't spend the money and just do the wood fiber. But I do know that the port and play is actually, it's really a nice surface, right? And then if it does get damaged, they can actually cut a section out and replace it. fairly easily, if I remember correctly, Marty. And
Yes.
I think the other side of it too really comes down to it's a little bit more money, but the surface I think is more durable. Jim, to your question, maybe it's a break even in 25 years. I have no idea. I would prefer that we do more port and play. It's a struggle to spend the money on it, but I would support it either way. I don't want to dumb down or shrink the size of the playground equipment that's there. That I don't want to do, because you want as many features as possible there to keep the kids interested, right? So they're going there and using it. So that part I don't want to do. So I don't want to try to manipulate the cost of it to try to fit in the port and play. I just think we should find a way to do the port and play.
The only thing I think in reading the documents, the packet, Marty, you said that the goal was a 3,000 square foot footprint, and all of these have, I shouldn't say all of them, I think most of them have come in over, like including, I think Lee 1 is also probably 10% over.
Yeah, however, keep this in mind. The square footage that you're looking at, almost all the proposals give you a nice, easy rectangle. In reality, that's not what happens. So when we put in the sidewalk, we cut the corners. So, like for instance, with Lee, we did a quick calculation where we cut the corners off. Their proposal for number 1, I think, was about like 3,400 square feet. When we cut the corners off, we're just under 3,000 square feet.
And then
So that would be the same with all of them.
okay, but your
With all
port
of
in place rough estimate is based off of that 3,000-ish, not off of like the 3,400.
Correct.
All right. I was hoping to make up some close.
Unfortunately, no.
Further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the list is consideration possible action to approve a 1-year extension with the Brown County Ice Management.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Oh.
Oh, no, Jim's got it. All right, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, Dean. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, consideration possible action to renew the agreement with Lizer of Wisconsin for noxious weed / long grass cutting. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda, consideration and possible action to approve changing the October 1st rental date to a rolling 365 days.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Could we get some explanation first,
Sure.
just for
Yeah.
the motive?
Sadly, Paul Arana's not here, Dean, for you to question.
So this is for the community center, and what we do right now is we don't allow rentals until October 1st of the following year, or I'm sorry, of the coming year. However, with the new recreation software that we have, for lack of better explanations, it works better with the software that we do a rolling 365 days versus waiting until October 1st. So it's really software based and ease of software versus any other reason than that. Did I explain that right, Grace?
No.
I didn't. Okay, let Grace explain.
You did, but it's not just for the community center. It's for
It's-
shelter rentals as well.
It is for shelter. Okay. It's for everything.
Dean, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any follow-up for Marty
Or Grace.
or Grace?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks, Grace. Thanks for bailing Marty out again. I appreciate that.
The rural department head.
Shayna,
I made a motion, yeah, I'll
But we
stick with that.
didn't second.
I don't
Nobody
think-
seconded me, so I'll make the
No one
motion to
sec-
approve.
All right, I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item up, consideration possible action to replace Braisher Park with Jim Martin Park as a playground site.
And by the way, we are blessed with Cindy,
Yes, thank you.
first time in a long time.
Hi, Cindy.
If, so Dean, so Cindy is just begging for questions.
I'm ready.
Any questions for Cindy?
She's waited here all this time.
I know, she's been waiting for a couple hours now, almost.
Maybe go over prompting, what prompted this?
Sure. Do you mind explaining why we're making the switch?
For a couple reasons. Looking at our numbers of the park attendees, the way Braisher is set up, it literally is a neighborhood park. There's a walkway that goes through it, so there's a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of younger families in the neighborhood who frequent the park. And the people who live very, very close to the park, whose houses border it, are very territorial about their park. Rightly so, it's a beautiful park. They get upset when people are parking because they're parking in front of their houses. There are kids in the neighborhood and other kids who utilize the park that are not part of our park playground program that upset the neighbors. They're setting off their Ring doorbells. They're crossing through their property. Over the past several years, the numbers at Braisher have dwindled, and we just felt that maybe moving it to Jim Martin would just bring new life to that particular park. It would bring new kids in. It's a very strong area with a lot of families in it that fit our age demographics. Something we'd like to look at least for this summer.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to say that I lived 3 houses from Braisher Park for the whole time my kids were growing up. We loved it. They did the program. I understand it's probably different these days, but we also had people parking in front of our house all the time, never bothered us. People, tons of people walking through the park. I assume they're still doing soccer there.
I
No?
believe they do. No?
Don's saying
okay.
no.
Yeah, I haven't seen them do soccer.
And why is that? Is
They've moved their operations and they've consolidated to different fields rather than have that one because there was numerous problems with that. It got wet.
yeah.
Really wet.
Yeah, I wouldn't block this change because you folks know better how it's going and what it would do. But I hope with soccer gone and this program gone, something will happen at Braisher so it doesn't just turn into a wasteland. You know, I'd like to see it utilized. And I don't buy the complaints about the parking and the noise and the people. I'm discounting that entirely. So.
Certain neighbors are very vocal.
So what? Okay.
I get that. There have been some challenges with it. And it is, again, it's a lovely park. It does get a lot of younger families where they come. A lot of grandparents are coming. Looking at our other parks, looking at the demographics of our other parks, looking at our numbers of our other parks, we just think that Jim Martin would be a bigger draw for our demographics, at least to give it a try.
Okay, thanks.
Shayna?
Did you track numbers there?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, every time we'd go over there, when the park program was in action, there was usually nobody there, or maybe 1 or 2 kids there at a time.
And it depends on the day. So when you're looking at the park playground program, the first 3 weeks of June typically is summer school. So mornings are very, very slow, oftentimes hardly any kids. Afternoons pick up a little bit. But looking at our numbers for enrollment, and I have that here. Braisher was actually our lowest park for registrants. With our park playground program, the families register for their home park. And I'd say 75% of the families stick with their home park. The other 25 might switch parks with on their side of the river. We do have a few families who park hop. I'll go to a park on Monday, see them there, and Tuesday they're to a different park. Past couple years, our most attended park with kids coming every day and registrants is Optimist Park. Our two lowest parks are Braisher and Patriot. The two highest are Kiwanis and Optimist.
Sorry, Dean can't hear us right now.
Yeah. So our audio is not going through apparently.
Oh.
Says,
I've got mics on here.
Jamie, is there something going on with the audio?
I can hear you all in here, so I'm not sure.
Dean can't hear anything. He said he's still connected via phone and he can't hear anything.
Chelsea said she can't hear anything either.
Oh, okay.
We can't continue if you
Yeah,
can't
we don't have a
communicate,
quorum.
right?
Correct.
So now you have to say all of that again. Just kidding.
I should have taken the notes.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
I mean, we go there. We go and have them meet up there and bring beverages.
To enable audio controls, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not,
Really, it's still a very special place.
this conference will now be recorded.
North Bags.
Really? By herself.
Okay.
She wants to cross.
I can hear. Yay!
There we go.
Hey. Would you like to
If
jump
you guys
in?
didn't want me on, you could have just told me. Jeez.
We need you though.
Yeah, you do, because you don't have a quorum without me.
Exactly.
No. Mm-mm.
All right, there's no motion on the table yet.
All right.
What do we want to do? Start over? I'll make a motion to approve the replacement.
I'll second it.
That's, sorry, that's assuming.
Are we
there's
still
a
talking about
replacement.
the?
We're still talking about replacing Braisher Park with Jim Martin Park as a playground site.
Oh, did we vote on the rental one? Because I don't know that I was part of that.
I think you must have dropped right
I
before
think
that.
that's
because
I think that's we lost connection.
Yeah, I did not hear.
The October 1st rental?
Yes. We did vote
Yeah.
we did vote on that. Would you like a vote to be noted for you on that item?
Well, you have to, otherwise it doesn't pass. It won't be valid. So I will vote yay, nay. No, I'll vote yay. Aye. That's what I meant. Aye.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. So that is clarified. Thank you, Dean. All right, we have a motion on the
Yep.
table. We have a motion on the table on item 15. Further discussion.
No, we need a second.
Oh,
Or did we get it?
I
Oh,
seconded.
okay.
There will be a review of that at the end of the year,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, there will.
Okay. Now we'll come to park board, or
We'd be happy to come report to you and, let you know how the summer went,
I mean, I'd
if
be
it made any
curious to-
difference.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear how that change goes and if you receive complaints from folks that usually use Braisher and whatnot.
Looking at the people who use Braisher, there's a good handful of ones that live right in the immediate area of them. But we also get a lot that are more on the outskirts, even across Webster, that are driven and dropped off. Same thing at Optimist. We have a lot that walk over, bike over, and a lot that are dropped off. talking with some families that do use Braisher that are kind of in the middle, there's some a little bit closer, some smack dab. They would have no problem going to Jim Martin. They thought it had some nice amenities and were very supportive of it.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item up, number 16, consideration possible action to approve camp summer swim adjustment.
Are you looking for some insight? So right
I
now,
would just make a motion to approve.
we got to approve, there's two options though.
All right, Dean, did you specify an option, or do you want to let Marty explain first before we act on your?
I'll let Marty explain. Yeah.
So Chelsea's, I think, online, but she can jump in if I represent incorrectly. But we're trying to find another or alternative way of having our West Side kids have the opportunity for swimming. Right now, we enter the pool when there's a line outside, and everyone would just assume throw knives at the kids as they're walking in. So we're trying to find a method of not having that occur. So there's a couple different things that we could do to allow swimming for our West Side kids. And one option is to enter earlier. We have to be cognizant of our staff. We have to be cognizant of not only staff of our pool staff, but also our summer camp staff. So it's not like we can just go there at 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, it doesn't work that way because we have lessons, et cetera. So, but an option would be is continue going to VFW pool, but go there a half an hour before we open. That way we avoid the massive line of people that are like want to throw knives at us as we're walking in. The other option is say we're not going to go to VFW at all, and then we would bus everybody over to Legion. So those are the two options. Cindy and Chelsea can maybe chime in what their preference would be. If I'm just going to speak, if I'm a parent, I think swimming is important, you know, if my kid's going, but I would obviously have a preference that they go to VFW over Legion. They're not on a bus. It's a little more fun. But, and again, it's sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Shayna.
So are we losing out on income from folks that are waiting in line because the capacity's reached?
No, I don't think so, because again, we're not there the entire open swim time. As soon as we leave, there's a whole bunch of people piling in.
Okay.
So I don't think there's this massive loss of revenue. I think what happens is there's a little bit of a delay until we hit, you know, paid capacity, because we have 30 kids that are in there.
30.
That count towards our capacity.
Because that was my other question. It's usually about 30 kids.
It's actually more than that. So, West Side Camp is 44 kids plus staff. So staff is usually additional, at least four additional staff, sometimes more than that, depending on weather, if we know it's going to be really hot, if we've got all 44 kids, but we're 44 max on the west side.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just...
And we are hitting, like when we hit capacity, it's normally that first like 2 hours or so until that first break, which is really that period of time where camp is there. Like that tends to be when we're hitting capacity.
So am I getting the impression that staff is...
I guess I'll go back to the start of my motion, but I would make a motion to approve option 2.
I'll second that. Shayna, do you have some?
Yeah, are you guys leaning more towards option 2? You think that that's the more viable option over busing kids to Legion?
There's pros and cons to both. Getting
Yeah.
in a little bit earlier would definitely help. It would definitely ease up on some of the stress related from the people waiting in line. Obviously, when the weather is hotter and more people are anxious to come, it factors in more.
Okay.
Option two, I mean, either option we would work with.
So you don't think having a bunch of kids in the pool before the pool is actually open to the public, I mean, won't that cause confusion for folks waiting in line? And knife throwing that way too? Why are those people in the pool and we can't be in the pool? I don't know. That would be a concern of mine.
You may have that, but you also have that indirectly anyway from starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Because, the pool is packed at 8, 9, 10 o'clock for lessons.
True. Okay.
And with summer camp, we swim test all of the kids. So the first week, especially the first couple weeks of camp, we are entering early. We are entering Legion early so that we can swim test all the kids before the general public comes in.
Okay.
Occasionally you get some questions with that, but as Marty said, with water aerobics going on, with swim lessons going on, there's always activity.
Okay.
Chelsea, I'm sorry. I think you were going to say something earlier. Did you want to check in with something?
One other thing.
Go ahead.
So one other thing too to note is that the safety aspect for VFW, I know Cindy has said it, I'm sure any of you who swam there have seen it. The visibility is very challenging when you're trying to supervise children. It can be really hard to keep line of sight there, whereas at Legion it's a lot easier to keep line of sight. So from a safety standpoint, Legion would be my preference. We can make it work, and by doing either one of those, we're reducing some of those risks, but VFW just has a lot of areas where it's very easy for a camper to not be visible in a matter of like 2 or 3 seconds, just from them moving and the way that the facility is designed.
Dean, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm still standing by my motion for option 2.
And I've still seconded it, so it is on the floor. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item on the list is consideration possible action to approve pool party rates.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Shayna, second by Jim. Discussion on the pool party rates. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Consideration possible action to approve Syble Hopp aquatic fees adjustment. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I just want to say, sorry,
No, go right ahead.
I looked at some fees just from other, from like the YWCA and CP Center, and our fees, even with the increase, are still really, really competitive. So we got to do what we got to do.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration and possible action to approve redirection of capital funds for self-watering pots. Marty, you might want to explain this one a little bit.
Give you the 30-second synopsis. So we've had money for a number of years, and it was intended to help the master gardeners do a beautification out on the Riverwalk. That's not going to happen anymore. And in the memo, it explains it, but long story short, Army Corps of Engineer came in, took out a bunch of their plants. They have reservations of doing more work out there because of the uncertainty from the Army Corps. So we're left with two options. We can just let that money go away, which is fine. And that's totally an option. Or we could redirect it to some other beautification type of, because that's what the money was technically for. One of the things that we have uncovered and found is, if everyone understands, we've got the beautiful hanging pots around the city. Those pots don't look pretty without a lot of work, and they need to be watered 6 days out of the 7 days. Otherwise, we have found they actually start dying off. A lot of those pots are in kind of precarious situations with traffic. So we've uncovered these pots that when I say self-watering, it's not like they just water themselves over the course of a week, but they allow you to not have to water 6 days a week. They allow us to maybe water 3 days a week or 4 days a week. So what we're doing, we're not eliminating risk by having staff park and out in traffic, but we are reducing it. So we're not adding to the beautification, but it is a beautification type project, and we're limiting risk from our staff. So we would request that you'd consider redirecting those, do one of two things: redirect the funds so we could purchase some of these self-watering pots, or we just terminate the project altogether.
Connor.
I think this is a great idea. I think the self-watering aspect obviously reduces man hours and would eventually pay for itself.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any,
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to discussion items. Number one, discussion of rental fee and procedures for Nelson Family Pavilion.
So we've been getting asked quite a bit already about what the fee rates and how we're going to handle the Nelson Pavilion. So prior to bringing you a policy, we wanted to try to get some guidance from you on what you'd like to see and some of the core understanding of it. So we did some research with other facilities. Granted, in the state of Wisconsin, there's only one facility that is really, really like this, and that's down in Greenfield. That's who we kind of copied this at. They don't rent it out. So take that, throw it out the window. So there's really nothing for us to really compare it to. So we looked at Green Owl Pavilion. We looked at the community center over in the Schwabenon, our community center, the amphitheater down in Kimberly. So we looked at larger type facilities, and we came up with the rental fee. We think would be fair. So there's a couple things, that I think we need guidance on. One, how do you want to go about renting it? Do you want to rent it by the hour, by half day, by the full day? As staff in the memo here, we would recommend starting out, we go by the full day. That's how we rent other shelters. If we go by the hour or half day, we're going to have to start coordinating staff to come in and clean the facility. That becomes a challenge at this point. Not saying it can't happen, but like the baby step into this. So our recommendation would be rent a full day at a time. The other part of this is, do you want to rent this facility if someone rents the park? Right now, if Celebrate the Pier rents the whole park, they get the open shelters when they rent the whole park. Do you want them to get use of this? We would recommend no. It's easier to control. Open shelters, almost when they rent the park, it's very hard to control. It's an open shelter. There's no door. You can't close it up. This we can close up. So I would recommend that they have to pay separate for this, even if they're going to rent the rent the park. The other avenue is, do you rent the patio and the multi-purpose room separate or together? We would recommend that you keep them together at this point in time. If someone's renting the multi-purpose room and they open the garage doors and you rent out the patio, well, they're blended together. So that doesn't really work. So we think it should be one contiguous rentable facility, patio, and multi-purpose facility. And then the cost, from what we've seen, I believe 200, did I put 250? Yeah, $250 a day and $400 for a non-resident. So those are the things that we need guidance on. If you're agreeable to it, what we go back and actually do like a whole rental policy, almost manual, if you will, because it's kind of that big of a facility to do that for people so they understand, and then bring it back to you. I'd like to say in March, but maybe it'd be April, and bring it back. So we're just looking for guidance right now. Bless you, whoever that was.
Jim.
Marty, refresh
that was
my memory.
Sorry, thought I was.
Refresh my memory, Marty. What's the capacity of this facility going to be if somebody's going to have a party?
I wasn't prepared for that question, Jim. I believe the interior space is like 50 to 75 legally. The patio, I'm not sure of. I'll be honest with you.
I thought it was 100 plus outside.
Yeah, I'd have to do some checking on it.
But really,
And I apologize. Brain dead.
Yeah, that's right. I'd
50
just
is
like
a
to
number.
know.
50 is a number that I think I've heard before about interior.
Okay. So it's very small group, like a wedding, a very small wedding or a,
That's for the interior.
For the
That's for the interior.
yeah. I think the price you're going to find really is on the low side that you've come up with for a brand new facility like this, but maybe do a little more looking at that.
We can do whatever you want. I mean, this is,
Because that's the whole day.
mhm.
I agree with you. I think it's low.
And I think you're going to need to say, does this come with half the restrooms or?
Well, so that's easily answerable.
Okay,
The exterior bathrooms are public bathrooms.
right.
So they're open to everybody all day. The interior space comes with an interior bathrooms that's theirs.
Just one or was there two?
Just one.
Just one, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, my only feedback is I think that number is low.
Dean, any feedback?
No, I like the discussion the way it's going.
Okay. So Marty, I don't
Mhm.
think anybody's disagreed with pretty much anything you said. Sounds like full day. Sounds like
We'll
the
relook at the
interior and
fees.
patio, relook at the fees.
Yep.
I think those are the two main points, correct? All right, thanks. All right, next up. Review of final report on maintenance and service analysis from Mead and Hunt. I don't know if you want to scroll on the projector piece. We're a few behind. Thank you.
I don't know if you want me to say anything about it, but really, you asked for them to go back and analyze the part-time staff. They did that. Generally speaking, it did change, but it really didn't change where we fit into the quartiles. So,
So, do you need a motion on this?
Nope.
No,
It's a
no.
discussion only, so,
Great.
all right.
Looks good.
Next item is review and discussion related to George Park and its use.
I'm deferring to Jim on this one.
Okay, I'll speak first. I'm not coming into this with any real preconceived notions of what to do here, but I've stared at this little piece of property that we're mowing and taking care of for 25 years, and I think it's a case of we should look of either find a way to get it off the books if that's possible, or do something with it. And I think what's been discussed in the past is the possibility for art project or displaying something, public art work or something. I guess I'd like somebody to look into this a bit, maybe see if there's interest on the part of the high schools or the college, or if Neville Public Museum has a statue sitting somewhere that they have no place to put it and it has to do with the pier. It's just begging for something to be done with it, or else why are we bothering? I'm assuming we have to shovel it. We have to, that long sidewalk on both sides we have to take care of. You have to send somebody there to mow it.
Yep.
And I'm a little unclear. Did we just decide because some neighbor didn't want it anymore, we took it? Is that looks like what happened.
So when it comes to the history of the parcel, there's not much on it. So unless we can find someone that was here when it all went down, I'm not sure we're ever going to figure that out 100%. Best as we know is it was lopped off the neighboring parcel. So why that was done?
They
no
didn't
clue.
want to shovel anymore.
Might have been. Very well could have been. Could have been.
And I don't know why we accepted it then. You know? But
it's-
bottom line is it's we're always strapped for time and hours and work, and why are we doing? Nobody knows it's public. But yet we're mowing it and shoveling it.
Yeah,
Like
we can certainly look at it when we can find time to kind of dive into this. I don't think it would be in the cards, but maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it would be in the cards to get rid of it and give it to the neighbor. And the only reason I say that is that in the cultural district plan, that area all the way to Webster is identified as a gateway. So, which is classified or lack of definitions and very important approach into the heart of the city of De Pere. So anytime we would own a piece of parcel, it allows flexibility for us to do something. What, I don't know, but something. I don't think the city would probably want to go down that road, but we could certainly ask. What could we do there? I know we've always offered out there, definitely to Pere or whoever, with their sculptures. If you wanted to use it, have at it. But right now at this point in time, we haven't invested a lot of time and energy into planning of that, simply because, it hasn't been a priority for us, and B, we got a list a mile long of other things that, were given to us as a priority. So we can certainly try to look at that. We just need to know, what kind of priority is it for the city?
I'd be happy to help out too if you needed people to contact the museum or the high schools or the college. I could do some of that background work. It just seems really silly to me to have property as part of the city. Nobody knows it is, but yet we have to take care of it. And and it is a really good location to put something, a display of some sort. I also think Rust Park across the street isn't really, what do you put a picnic table out there? And
Don can probably speak to that, but I think that is an actual valuable cut through for the neighborhood. So while maybe it's not your traditional park, but it is a valuable green space.
I agree. Yeah. But that could be utilized a little bit better too.
Connor.
Back to that smaller parcel, I'd like to second having an art piece or a statue of some kind there. Clearly, we have the money and man hours to beautify it. Why not put something even more beautiful in its spot? I think we should keep it and put some art there, because I think art always makes the area look better.
Any other discussion around George Park and its use? All right, next item, discussion regarding admittance of vending machine at Fox Point Boat Launch.
Rob Korth, who we work with to offer a vending machine down at Voyageur, well, not right now because there's no place to put it, but that was approved by Park Board to offer and have the service. Then we went out for an RFP. He was the one that bid. So the process here is, do you want the service down at Fox Point where he's asking? If you want the service down at Fox Point, we would go out for RFP, and then whoever bids, we would bring it back. We would issue a vending permit to those persons or person, and then we move forward. So the biggest question is, would you like to see it? I don't know if I put it in there or not, but from a staff perspective, we look at a lot of things, and what is the area doing for a similar service? Right now, I do believe Rob has, for many years, offered a service for bait right in the Dairy Queen parking lot. I believe the convenience store also offers bait. So I'm not so sure that I'm not sure that a vending machine at Fox Point serves the community. Don't get me wrong, I think it would be convenient, but I don't think it serves in the same manner as at Voyageur, where there really isn't a close place for bait. So that's just from a staff perspective.
One difference for me between...
Yeah, Marty, I think you're right. I know the convenience store there does sell bait, because I bought it there before. I'm not sure about Dairy Queen parking lot, but I know that there's bait in that area. I agree. I don't think it's necessary.
And I think one of the differences is Fox Point is a boat launch, and I really don't see people fishing from the docks. I don't think it's safe necessarily with the amount of boats coming and going, but Voyageur is a spot where traditionally we have shore fisher people. So I think there's a...
We do have shore Fisher. We do have quite a bit
At
of shore
Fox
fishing
Point
at
as well.
Fox Point. However, it's more for the people that are on their boats going in and out.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're not real, we don't want an RFP, or we do? Nope, okay. Moving on.
Right.
Staff updates. Staff report on canoe and kayak launch.
Canoe kayak launch, so we just sent the PO today. So the wheels have been put in motion for that. And the comp plan was approved by council. We're just waiting for the signed resolution, and then it'll get to Mead and Hunt. It'll get submitted to DNR, and we're done with a project.
Future agenda items.
No one
Motion
wants
to-
to say anything because we keep having. our
Yep,
agenda.
motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I'm.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry. Thank you, Dean. Look forward to seeing you again.
Your husband.
We are adjourned.
With his present.